Hi, this is Jim, and I'm the New Hampshire Rock Guy, and we're out on another one of my mining adventures. Wow, look at this spar here. It's just falling out of the mine walls, and there's so much more to see. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Feel all 6 sides of the tourmaline crystal. What would be west into the Connecticut River Valley and the mountains of Vermont.
World-class beryl crystals, both aquamarine and golden.
If you look hard enough, you'll find something it's facing.
Get ready for a fantastic journey of this incredible mine. Welcome back. It's Jim Pecora, the New Hampshire Rock Guy and director of the Mica Mine Schoolhouse and the New England Mineral Museum out of Alstead, New Hampshire. Just to tell you a little bit about the schoolhouse actually does travel. I lecture throughout New England. This coming Monday, I'll be in Hamden, Connecticut, lecturing on the history of beryl and beryllium. I have another lecture on gold that's new this year. It's called Gold in Golden New England, and I'm very excited about that lecture. So if anybody watching has an audience or would like to propose me to be a speaker, I'd love to do that. The Mica Mine Schoolhouse also goes on the road with the Crystal Rock Arts, which is kind of the museum's gift shop. And all of the production of these videos is made from the sale of rocks. I had hoped to do just local rocks. Unfortunately, not everybody wants to buy local, so we sell rocks from all over the world, made into typically beautiful jewelry. So anyway, we're back with Gordon Gowen and talking about the history of some of the mines and the mining operations that were so prolific here in this southwestern New Hampshire area. We're in the Keene Pegmatite District. According to the government documents of pre-World War II, this was called the Keene Pegmatite District. Grafton, New Hampshire, north of us, was the Grafton District, and that's where many people have gone to the Ruggles mine. Is in the Grafton area. That's the country's oldest mica mine. The second oldest mica mine is right here in Alstead, or East Alstead, New Hampshire, and kind of goes by many names, the Big Mine or the Gilsum Mine, which is in Alstead, even though it's called the Gilsum Mine. Most of the workers lived in Gilsum. So one last anecdotal story about Stanley. We were talking about Stanley Osgood, and there's one story that was relayed to me again by Dale Johnson. So this is a first-hand account of what Stanley said to Dale. Gordon, you mentioned he had a very active imagination. Perhaps that's the way you worded it. So Dale was giving Stanley a ride home, and Stanley asked Dale if he knew who ran the FBI. And Dale's answer at that point was he thought it was Edgar Hoover. And Stanley told him no, it was him. With his black briefcase and overcoat.
He was probably sure of that too.
So anyway, we don't mean to disrespect Stanley. You've left us with lots of great stories and rumors, and hopefully we've cleared up a few of the potential rumors and set the history book straight. Is there anything else you want to add about Stanley?
I can remember when he was boiling. We had cattle here, milking cows, and we always had cattle at that Osgood farm where our sugar house. See, one end of that house, the Osgood place of the main house, was dropped in to the cellar and an evaporator put in the cellar so that you had room enough in one half of that house and we sugared there from 1821 to 1900.
Wow.
And it worked out fine, even with the some of the steamaways and things that I put together and had more efficient. And the maple industry is another whole ball game, that come further in the last 25 years than it did the last 2,500 years. It's really evolving.
Right, with the osmosis and removal of water.
ROs, reverse osmosis, and vacuum.
Oh, the vacuum lines.
Oh boy,
yeah.
That makes one awful difference to sap. But I can remember we had cattle up in the barn. There was a house and barn, the Osgood place. and we had always had a bunch of young heifers and the steers. My grandfather, had steers and oxen. That's what it was and the horses, of course, until tractors finally made it in about 1940 and whatever. But every day they go up there twice. Somebody go in the morning, and it was my grandfather usually, and I was a little tyke, and I'd have to trot. Gramp never let up, and he'd walk striding right along, and I'd be dogging along. But I did it day after day because I enjoyed it, so I wanted to go with Gramp and go up the hill, cross lots up to the barn. But what I'm getting at is I can remember when Stanley first started to boil here, I don't know what year it was, going over after we pushed up the hay and made sure the cattle were all right, going over to the sugar house, and it was steam. He was boiling, and my grandfather put 2 or 3 eggs into the sap. Instant boiled eggs, that's hot. And eating it.
Would they crack open, or
no,
did you put a hole in them?
I don't know what Gramp did, but they come out just fine. And I thought I was in heaven because I was eating, sitting there, and I remember Stanley was there, This probably was in their very early 40s. But these things stick in my mind that
eating these maple syrup cooked eggs.
He might even Stanley might have had an egg. I don't know. That probably it's all he had all day. I say he didn't eat much.
Oh, he didn't.
For a man, I say he lived on snuff. If he hadn't had that, he'd have died long ago, because he'd gone crazy. But he didn't eat much. Yeah, he was just he wasn't a big man. He was a little guy.
Yeah, huh. I never thought of his stature. I'm thinking of him when people talk about him in this long coat. I had this vision he was tall.
Oh, no. He's a little guy.
Huh.
But he was always all right here. He didn't go lying his way through. He'd talk, and he'd talk to kids, and he'd talk to grandparents and parents. And
did he play cards with you, or
I think he
games?
did with my grandparents some.
Yeah.
Because they were card players. They'd come get chores done at night and get everything cleaned up. They'd play a little whist or something, and that's where I learned how to play a lot of cards.
Yeah. Did Stanley have any? Did he play any instrument or anything? Did he have
not that I know of.
Okay. That's something I wouldn't know. Well, let's come back to the mines. We were talking about Osgood Ledge. Again, not to confuse the Osborne Osgood thing, but interesting that they're both here the same thing. So where we're situated right now, we've got the Cold River right behind us, and separating Barrel Mountain and Osgood Ledge is the Cold River. Barrel Mountain is quite small as compared to the vastness of Osgood Ledge.
Just a knob.
Yeah, it was just a little knob. But what's interesting, when we think back to before white man was here, perhaps, these mountains, these hills must have stood out like a sore thumb, because Barrel Mountain would have been just a white knob or knoll. It was all encased in that white quartz.
Apparently, it's I don't know what happened, because when I was a kid and I went to school in South Acworth, and it was go up to Barrel Mountain and breeze, and a little walk up there, school. The kids would look at stuff and see the beryllium in the wall. You could see the things. Of course, they disappeared when people began to learn they better pick them out of there before that somebody else did. But they
would there be different colors, both the aquamarine and then the golden?
They were darker. Some were pretty red, and some were almost green, I'd say. I don't know one stone from another.
Yeah, they call it the aquamarine. It would be water of the sea, so it's usually the bluish, greenish hues. The red is interesting because I hadn't heard of that, but in the government documents it said that in Barrel Mountain there was There was aquamarine. I think it named aquamarine as the greenish blue, golden, and then brown. They said there was brown beryl, and there was even a clear form of beryl called goshenite, which would look much like clear quartz. And all of those were found here. I'm wondering if that reddish would be like a reddish brown.
Hard to tell. Hard for me.
Because we don't have very many red rocks like
No.
of crystalline.
But I
variety.
can remember thinking there was a reddish color to
Yeah.
it. But then, of course, they claim the biggest one that they ever got out of there is over in Hungary or somewhere now.
Austria.
Austria.
Well, originally Austria. I don't know, but yes, it was a cabinet specimen. This is going back in time for the history of Barrow Mountain. When world records came about and were being set, Barrow Mountain was the first recorded world record for the size of a beryl crystal. I think it was. I'd be guessing at the dimensions, about 240 pounds. And that record lasted a couple of decades, and then the record for the world's record moved to that Ruggles mine that we spoke of, and there the crystal was it was almost the same length, maybe 2 or 4 feet long, but the girth in the Ruggles mine made it 2,400 pounds. So it was almost 10 times the size.
What's a thing like that worth?
I don't know.
I don't.
But that held the world record for the remainder of that whole century, and then it moved off to Maine. So yes, Acworth has notoriety as a world famous locality because of this world record barrel originally, and it was bought by somebody in Vienna, or it was gifted to somebody in Vienna, and it's in their museum supposedly still to this day. There's other beryl crystals at the Smithsonian that came from this area. They're actually
they
so
had
large
to.
they're outside.
There weren't very many places other than here that it could come from. Well, it was interesting. But that, I don't know. It seems like there's 2 or 3 spasms of working on Barrow Mountain. Digging at it, working to harvest
Yeah.
the barrel, and I could never figure out the first time when the company pulled up stakes and left, or at least the people doing the work did, when you could still obviously see in the rock what I assumed was what they were after, beryllium.
Yeah. Did you ever go into the tunnel? Supposedly there was a cavity, and I actually have a picture of somebody in the cavity. I did not know where this picture was taken until yesterday, but Margaret Rhodes has this picture in a postcard, and it tells that it's the cavity at Barrow Mountain. But then there was another tunnel supposedly that went in.
I don't remember that at all.
Don't remember the tunnel. The other thing that I heard about it was that it was so vital that the Balla family provided armed guards during World War II to Barrow Mountain, and they actually guarded it.
Well, like they'd guard their own mines, because they were mining. Old John was up on Barrow Mountain as
Right behind it.
it went. Yeah,
Yep.
down through.
I have a map of that. So let's go right to that, because I was curious. I've not seen all of these localities. So here's Barrow Mountain, and it's a topographical. And then if you came in by Sharon Elcester, where she lives, you had these 3 mines that were definitely the Balla mines.
Yep.
And then there were 2 here that was, but the access would be from, this is another, I don't know the name of this road. Have you ever been out to, I've seen these 3. I've never seen these 2.
I can't tell you. I've seen old John Balla's 2 or 3 of his mines, and I can't tell you where they are. They're on that hill somewhere, but I just happened to go by them, that's all.
I found documentation that said that their feldspar was good for enamel. So enamel was used widely throughout many things, and enamel would be what was put on a like those metal. It was the final coating to one of those metal tables. You'd have the enamel, or they used it on the outside of perhaps stoves and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Countertops.
And then the mason jar tops.
Mm-hmm.
So the other I had some names of some companies, and I just wasn't sure if you were familiar. These ones that are circled, I don't know much about. This came from historical records of different mining companies. Did any of those ring a bell?
Oh, yeah, Golden King and Uhas. Dinsmore is a familiar name, but I didn't know he was a miner.
Albert Dinsmore.
Yeah.
And then these go into something that we haven't really talked about, which this talks about the mica rifting and trimming, which was quite a big operation. When they took mica out of the mines, they would. There was a big one on Mechanic Street in Alsted. There was a thing called the mica shed.
Oh
here.
yeah, but at wartime they were employing a lot of people
To do the trimming.
to trim it up and make it valuable instead of just lumps.
Right. Do you know? I don't know anything of the history of up here towards the South Acworth store, and then you get down like the beginning of Burrow Mountain Road. There was a thing called the mica shed. Was it just a storage facility, or
That's
did
all
they?
it was, I think.
Did they work on it? The mica?
Well, at one point they may have been in there carving or making it more valuable.
Yeah.
Because the one in Elsted, at one point there, Craig's, what was his first name? Craig Place, right beside the post office, had a.
Oh yeah.
They were trimming a lot of mica by the truckload.
His mine was up on. You go up Thayerbrook Road, and then you take the other Corbin Hill Road.
Yeah.
There was the Lyman mine.
There was.
And then that was a thing called
There
the
was
Craig.
holes in the ground everywhere.
Yeah.
along the Corbin Road to East Elsted and Heavens. I always wondered why the one right where you turn to go out to